The Hunt is a 2012 Danish psychological drama directed by Thomas Vinterberg, starring Mads Mikkelsen. Set in a small Danish village during the Christmas season, the film follows Lucas, a divorced kindergarten teacher whose life unravels when he is falsely accused of sexually abusing a child in his class. The accusation spreads quickly, inciting fear and suspicion among the townspeople. Friends turn against him, his social life collapses, and he faces both legal and social ostracism despite his innocence. The film explores themes of trust, mass hysteria, and the fragility of reputation, showing how quickly a community can be consumed by fear and prejudice. Mikkelsen's performance as Lucas was widely acclaimed for its depth and emotional resonance, portraying the character's isolation, despair, and quiet resilience. Vinterberg's direction effectively builds tension through the careful depiction of everyday life turned suspicious and threatening, allowing viewers to experience the escalating paranoia and injustice firsthand. The Hunt received international recognition, with awards and nominations including Best Actor at the Cannes Film Festival, a nomination for Best Foreign Language Film at the Golden Globes, and a Nordic Council Film Prize. The film remains regarded as one of the most powerful psychological dramas of its era, noted for its unflinching portrayal of human behavior under suspicion and fear. Lucas is a kindergarten teacher in a small Danish village, enjoying a close relationship with the children and longing for more time with his teenage son, Marcus, who mostly lives with his mother. Lucas's life seems to improve when Marcus expresses a desire to live with him and Lucas begins dating his coworker, Clara, the daughter of Lucas's best friend Theo, has a habit of wandering off when her parents argue, and Lucas often helps her. Over time, Clara develops a crush on him, but Lucas gently rejects her advances. Influenced by a friend, Clara makes comments implying that Lucas has behaved inappropriately. Greth, the kindergarten director, misinterprets Clara's remarks and informs the authorities and parents, believing children cannot lie about such matters. Even when Clara later recants, the adults interpret this as denial of abuse. Lucas is immediately ostracized, he loses his job. His friendship with Theo deteriorates, and the community treats him as a pariah. He struggles to understand the accusations and ends his relationship with Na, believing she may doubt him. Marcus runs away to be with Lucas, but the boy witnesses his father being arrested. A friend, Brun, reassures Marcus that Lucas may be cleared, noting inconsistencies in the children's claims, such as references to a basement that Lucas's house does not have. After his release, Lucas faces continued harassment. His dog is killed, his window is smashed, and he is assaulted at the local grocery store. Lucas defends himself, confronting the townspeople physically and challenging Theo during a church service to see if he is lying. Theo begins to realize the truth and eventually reconciles with Lucas, acknowledging that he did nothing wrong. By the following fall, tensions in the village ease. Lucas regains his friend's trust, reconciles with Na, and spends time with Marcus. He and Clara also reunite, symbolically carrying her to spare her from stepping on cracks. During a hunting trip, Lucas narrowly escapes an unknown shooter, leaving a lingering sense of unease even as life in the village returns to normal. Thomas Vinterberg's The Hunt stands as one of the most psychologically devastating and morally complex films of the 21st century, a harrowing exploration of how quickly a community can turn against one of its own based on nothing more than suspicion and fear. Released in 2012, this Danish psychological drama represents a masterful examination of mass hysteria, the fragility of reputation, and the devastating consequences of false accusations in small, tight-knit communities. The film's Danish title, Jagten, carries additional weight in its original language, suggesting not merely a hunt but a relentless pursuit that becomes increasingly savage and dehumanizing. The story centers on Lucas, portrayed with extraordinary depth and vulnerability by Mads Mikkelsen, a divorced kindergarten teacher living in a small Danish village whose life is systematically destroyed when he becomes the target of accusations of child sexual abuse. These accusations stem from a misunderstanding involving Clara, a 5-year-old girl who is the daughter of Lucas's best friend Theo. The film's genius lies not in questioning whether Lucas is guilty or his innocence is never in doubt, but rather in its unflinching examination of how quickly and completely a community can ostracize someone based on a mere suggestion of impropriety. Vinterberg's direction is characterized by an intimate, almost claustrophobic style that places viewers uncomfortably close to the action. The camera work, handled with precision by cinematographer Charlotte Bruss Christensen, employs handheld techniques that create a sense of immediacy and documentary-like authenticity. This visual approach serves the narrative perfectly, as it places audiences directly into Lucas's increasingly isolated world, making them witnesses to his psychological and social destruction. The film's visual language is deliberately restrained, avoiding any sensationalism or exploitation of its sensitive subject matter, instead focusing on the subtle shifts in body language, facial expressions, and social dynamics that signal Lucas's fall from grace. The performance by Mads Mikkelsen anchors the entire film with a portrayal that is both heartbreaking and dignified. Mikkelsen's Lucas is a fundamentally decent man whose world collapses not through any fault of his own, but through a tragic series of misunderstandings and the community's willingness to believe the worst. Mikkelsen's acting is characterized by restraint and subtlety, conveying volumes through small gestures and expressions. His portrayal never seeks sympathy through manipulation. Instead, it presents Lucas as a fully realized human being whose quiet dignity remains intact even as everything around him crumbles. The performance earned Mikkelsen the Best Actor award at the Cannes Film Festival, recognition that was richly deserved for what many consider one of the finest acting performances in contemporary cinema. The film's exploration of childhood innocence and the adult world's projection of its own fears and prejudices onto children is particularly sophisticated. Annika Wedderkopp's performance as Clara is remarkable for its naturalism and authenticity. The young actress captures the confusion and vulnerability of a child caught between her own limited understanding and the adult world's reaction to her words. Clara's initial accusation stems from a combination of factors: her innocent crush on Lucas, her exposure to inappropriate material through her older brother's friend, and the leading questions of well-meaning but misguided adults who believe they are protecting her. The screenplay, co-written by Vinterberg and Tobias Lindholm, demonstrates exceptional insight into human psychology and social dynamics. The writers understand that the most devastating aspect of Lucas's situation is not the initial accusation, but the way the community's response creates its own momentum. Each person's reaction builds upon the previous one, creating a cascade of assumptions and judgments that becomes increasingly difficult to stop or reverse. The script avoids easy villains, instead presenting a community of fundamentally decent people who, when faced with the possibility that a child has been harmed, react in ways that seem reasonable from their individual perspectives but collectively create a nightmare for an innocent man. One of the film's most powerful elements is its unflinching portrayal of how mass hysteria develops and spreads through a community. The transformation of Lucas from respected community member to pariah occurs with terrifying speed and completeness. Friends who have known him for years suddenly view him with suspicion and fear. The grocery store owner refuses to serve him. His colleagues ostracize him. Children who once adored him flee in terror at his approach. This social death is portrayed as more devastating than physical violence, as it strips Lucas of his identity, his livelihood, and his place in the world. The film's setting in a small Danish village during the Christmas season adds layers of irony and meaning to the narrative. Christmas, traditionally a time of forgiveness, redemption, and community unity, becomes instead a period of division and cruelty. The contrast between the season's supposed message of love and understanding and the community's actual behavior toward Lucas creates a profound sense of irony that permeates the entire film. The Christmas church service scene, where Lucas confronts Theo in front of the entire congregation, serves as a powerful metaphor for the way religious and social institutions can fail to live up to their stated values when faced with difficult situations. The character of Theo, played with complexity by Thomas Bo Larsen, represents the film's most tragic figure aside from Lucas himself. As Clara's father and Lucas's best friend, Theo is torn between loyalty to his friend and the need to protect his daughter. His journey throughout the film, from trusted friend to hostile accuser to eventual recognition of the truth, mirrors the community's own arc while providing a deeply personal dimension to the broader social commentary. The friendship between Lucas and Theo, built over years of shared experiences and mutual trust, becomes a casualty of the hysteria, demonstrating how even the strongest personal bonds can be severed by fear and suspicion. The film's treatment of the investigation process reveals a damning critique of how child abuse allegations are sometimes handled. The interview with Clara by the supposed expert demonstrates how leading questions and preconceived notions can shape a child's responses. The interviewer, despite his good intentions, guides Clara toward answers that confirm his suspicions rather than seeking the truth. This portrayal highlights real concerns about the reliability of child testimony and the potential for well-meaning adults to inadvertently create false memories or encourage false statements. Vinterberg's background as one of the founders of the Dogma 95 movement is evident in the film's naturalistic approach and emotional authenticity. While The Hunt doesn't strictly adhere to dogma principles, it shares the movement's commitment to psychological realism and its rejection of artificial manipulation. The film's power comes not from manufactured drama but from the authentic portrayal of human behavior under extreme stress. This approach makes the film's events feel frighteningly plausible, as viewers can easily imagine how similar situations might unfold in their own communities. The film's sound design and musical score, composed by Nicola Jagland, work in subtle harmony with the visual elements to create an atmosphere of mounting tension and isolation. The score is deliberately restrained, often allowing natural sounds to dominate the soundtrack. When music is present, it tends to underscore emotional moments without overwhelming them, maintaining the film's commitment to naturalism while enhancing its emotional impact. The role of children in the film extends beyond Clara to include Marcus, Lucas's teenage son, and the other children in the kindergarten. Marcus's unwavering belief in his father's innocence provides one of the film's few sources of help and redemption. His decision to leave his mother and stand by Lucas during his darkest hour demonstrates the kind of loyalty and love that the adult community fails to show. The other children's quick acceptance of the allegations against Lucas reveals how easily young minds can be influenced by adult fears and prejudices. The film's exploration of masculinity is particularly nuanced, examining how Lucas's gentle nature with children, once seen as a positive trait, becomes twisted into something sinister in the community's perception. His tenderness and care, qualities that made him an excellent teacher, are reinterpreted as potential predatory behavior. This transformation reflects broader social anxieties about men working with children and the unfortunate reality that male caregivers often face additional scrutiny simply because of their gender. The cinematography throughout the film maintains a delicate balance between intimacy and objectivity. Close-ups are used judiciously to capture emotional moments, while wider shots place characters within their social and physical environment. The camera work never feels intrusive or exploitative, despite dealing with extremely sensitive subject matter. This restraint is crucial to the film's success, as it allows viewers to focus on the human drama without being distracted by flashy techniques or manipulative editing. The film's pacing deserves special mention, as Vinterberg builds tension gradually while allowing each scene to breathe and develop naturally. The escalation of Lucas's situation feels organic rather than forced, with each incident building logically on previous events. This careful pacing allows viewers to fully comprehend the magnitude of what is happening to Lucas while experiencing the mounting pressure that drives him toward his breaking point. The supporting performances throughout the film are uniformly excellent, creating a believable community populated by recognizable human types rather than simple archetypes. Suswolder's Greth, the kindergarten director, embodies the well-meaning but misguided authority figure whose certainty about children never lying becomes a dangerous oversimplification. Anne-Louise Hassing as Agnes, Clara's mother, portrays a woman torn between maternal instinct and growing doubt. Lars Brun provides a voice of reason and loyalty that stands in stark contrast to the community's general abandonment of Lucas. The film's handling of the sensitive topic of child sexual abuse deserves recognition for its thoughtfulness and responsibility. Vinterberg never sensationalizes or exploits the subject matter, instead treating it with the gravity and care it deserves. The film doesn't question the importance of protecting children or the need to take allegations seriously, but it does examine the potential for good intentions to go wrong when combined with hysteria and prejudice. This balanced approach allows the film to explore its themes without minimizing the real trauma that actual abuse causes. The village setting serves as more than just a backdrop, it becomes almost a character in its own right. The small, interconnected community where everyone knows everyone else's business creates the perfect environment for rumors to spread and reputations to be destroyed. The physical environment are the narrow streets, the local shops, the church becomes increasingly hostile territory for Lucas as the film progresses. The transformation of familiar, comfortable spaces into sources of anxiety and danger reflects Lucas's internal journey from security to isolation. The film's use of symbolism is subtle but effective. The dog Fanny, who is killed by unknown perpetrators, represents the innocence and loyalty that become casualties of the community's hysteria. The hunting sequence that bookends the film provides a powerful metaphor for Lucas's situation. He has become prey in his own community, hunted by people who were once his friends. The final scene, where an unknown gunman takes aim at Lucas in the forest, suggests that the effects of the accusations may never fully disappear, that Lucas will always be looking over his shoulder, wondering when the next attack might come. The film's international reception demonstrated its universal relevance despite its specifically Danish setting. The themes it explores are the fragility of reputation, the power of community judgment, the difficulty of proving innocence once accused, resonate across cultures and societies. The film's success at international film festivals and its Academy Award nomination for Best Foreign Language Film confirmed its status as a work that transcends national boundaries to address fundamental human concerns. The performance of Annika Wedderkopp as Clara presents one of the most challenging aspects of the film, portraying a child whose innocent actions have devastating consequences without making her a villain. Wedderkopp's naturalistic performance captures the confusion and vulnerability of a young child caught in adult circumstances she cannot understand. The film's treatment of Clara is compassionate, recognizing that she too is a victim of adult failures rather than the perpetrator of malicious lies. The film's editing, handled by Janus Bileskov Jansson and Valdez Skarstad maintains the naturalistic flow while building dramatic tension. The cuts are precise but never draw attention to themselves, allowing the performances and story to remain the focus. The editing rhythm matches the film's careful pacing, giving each scene time to develop while maintaining narrative momentum. The production design creates an authentic small-town Danish environment that feels lived in and real. The kindergarten, Lucas's home, the local shops, and other locations are presented without artificial enhancement, maintaining the film's commitment to naturalism. This attention to authentic detail helps ground the story in reality, making the events feel more immediate and frightening. The film's exploration of the nature of truth and perception reveals how subjective reality can be, especially in emotionally charged situations. What actually happened between Lucas and Clara, a gentle rebuff of an innocent crush, becomes transformed through retelling, interpretation, and assumption into something sinister and criminal. This transformation demonstrates how the same facts can be interpreted in radically different ways depending on the observer's preconceptions and fears. The role of authority figures in the film are the kindergarten director, the interviewer, the police shows how institutional responses to child abuse allegations, while well-intentioned, can sometimes cause additional harm through their certainty and inflexibility. These figures represent systems designed to protect children, but the film demonstrates how these same systems can become instruments of injustice when they operate on assumptions rather than evidence. The film's treatment of forgiveness and redemption is complex and ambiguous. While Lucas eventually regains some acceptance in the community, the final scene suggests that complete rehabilitation may be impossible. Some wounds, the film implies, never fully heal, and some suspicions never entirely disappear. This realistic approach to resolution avoids simple answers while acknowledging the long-term consequences of false accusations. The Christmas Eve grocery store confrontation represents one of the film's most powerful scenes, showing Lucas at his lowest point but also demonstrating his refusal to be completely broken. His decision to fight back against the store employees and reclaim his groceries becomes a symbolic assertion of his dignity and humanity in the face of dehumanizing treatment. This scene balances Lucas's vulnerability with his strength, showing that even in his darkest hour, he retains his essential dignity. The church confrontation scene serves multiple functions within the narrative. It provides Lucas with an opportunity to confront his accusers publicly, but it also demonstrates the inadequacy of public institutions to address private grievances. The church, supposedly a place of sanctuary and forgiveness, becomes instead another arena for conflict and division. Lucas's challenge to Theo to look in his eyes and see the truth reflects a fundamental belief in the possibility of human understanding and connection, even in the face of overwhelming hostility. The film's portrayal of male friendship through the Lucas-Theo relationship adds emotional depth to the broader social commentary. Their friendship, built over years of shared experiences, hunting trips, and mutual support, becomes a casualty of the hysteria surrounding the allegations. The eventual reconciliation between the two men provides one of the film's few moments of hope, suggesting that genuine human connections can sometimes survive even the most severe tests. The hunting scenes that frame the film create a powerful metaphor for the human capacity for both violence and restraint. The men who participate in the hunt are the same ones who have ostracized Lucas, yet in the context of their hunt, they follow rules, show respect for their prey, and demonstrate controlled aggression. This contrast highlights the irony that they showed less humanity toward Lucas than they do toward the animals they hunt. The film's treatment of childhood and innocence reveals the complex ways adults project their own fears and experiences onto children. Clara's innocent actions are interpreted through adult understanding of sexuality and abuse, transforming harmless childhood behavior into something sinister. This projection demonstrates how adult fears can corrupt the very innocence they claim to protect. The role of gossip and rumor in the film shows how information spreads and transforms as it moves through a community. What begins as a specific allegation becomes generalized suspicion, then grows into elaborate fantasies about multiple victims and systematic abuse. This progression demonstrates how rumors can take on a life of their own, growing more extreme and detailed with each retelling. The film's exploration of collective responsibility raises uncomfortable questions about how communities respond to crisis. While individual characters make specific choices that harm Lucas, the film suggests that the entire community bears some responsibility for the injustice that occurs. This collective culpability makes the film's moral landscape more complex and challenging for viewers. The cinematographic choice to film much of the action at eye level creates an egalitarian perspective that places viewers among the characters rather than above them. This approach prevents the film from taking a superior or judgmental stance toward the community, instead presenting events from within the social fabric rather than from an external moral position. The film's handling of the investigation process reveals systemic flaws in how such allegations are sometimes processed. The interviewer's leading questions, the assumption that children never lie about abuse, and the failure to consider alternative explanations all contribute to a process that prioritizes confirmation over investigation. This critique doesn't diminish the importance of protecting children but highlights the need for more sophisticated and nuanced approaches to such sensitive matters. The seasonal progression from autumn to winter to the following autumn mirrors Lucas's journey through his ordeal and partial recovery. The Christmas setting intensifies the irony of the community's behavior. while the return to autumn in the final scenes suggests both cyclical repetition and the possibility of renewal. However, the final gunshot reminds viewers that some effects of the ordeal may be permanent. The film's sound design creates an atmosphere of increasing isolation and paranoia. The normal sounds of community life, children playing, adults conversing, everyday activities become threatening or disappear entirely as Lucas becomes more ostracized. This audio landscape helps convey Lucas's psychological state without relying on internal monologue or explicit exposition. The performance of Thomas Bo Larsen as Theo captures the complexity of a man torn between loyalty to his friend and the need to protect his child. Theo's journey from trust to suspicion to eventual recognition of the truth provides an emotional arc that mirrors the community's broader transformation. His final reconciliation with Lucas offers help for healing while acknowledging the damage that has been done. The film's treatment of the media and external authorities suggests that outside intervention may sometimes do more harm than good in close-knit communities. The expert brought in to interview Clara, despite his credentials and good intentions, lacks understanding of the local context and relationships that might provide important nuances to the situation. This portrayal critiques the tendency to rely on external expertise while ignoring local knowledge and relationships. The role of women in the film, particularly the mothers and female teachers, reflects gender-based assumptions about child protection and nurturing. These characters often serve as the most implacable opponents of Lucas, suggesting that maternal instincts, while admirable, can sometimes lead to injustice when combined with fear and suspicion. The film doesn't condemn these characters but rather shows how gender roles and expectations can contribute to tragic misunderstandings. The film's exploration of social class dynamics reveals how accusations of child abuse can transcend normal social boundaries. Lucas's position as a teacher and respected community member provides no protection once suspicion falls upon him. This democratic nature of suspicion, and the fact that anyone can become a target, adds to the film's unsettling power and universal relevance. The visual motifs throughout the film, including doors closing, windows being broken, and physical barriers being erected, reinforce Lucas's increasing isolation and social death. These visual elements work subtly to convey the gradual construction of walls between Lucas and his community without relying on heavy-handed symbolism. The film's treatment of justice and legal processes reveals the limitations of formal systems in addressing complex social problems. While Lucas is eventually cleared of criminal charges, the social damage cannot be undone through legal means. This distinction between legal innocence and social rehabilitation highlights the difference between formal and informal justice systems. The role of loyalty in the film, demonstrated by characters like Marcus and Brun, provides crucial counterpoints to the community's general abandonment of Lucas. These loyal supporters remind viewers that not everyone succumbs to mass hysteria and that individual conscience can resist social pressure. Their presence prevents the film from becoming completely pessimistic about human nature. The film's international critical acclaim demonstrated its relevance beyond Danish culture, suggesting that the fears and prejudices it explores are universal human tendencies rather than culturally specific phenomena. The film's success in diverse cultural contexts confirmed that its themes resonate across national and cultural boundaries. The editing rhythm of the film matches its emotional trajectory, with cuts becoming more rapid and disorienting as Lucas's situation deteriorates, then settling into a more measured pace as some resolution is achieved. This technical approach supports the narrative without calling attention to itself, maintaining the film's naturalistic style while enhancing its dramatic impact. The film's treatment of childhood trauma, both real and imagined, demonstrates sophisticated understanding of how children process difficult experiences. Clara's confusion and eventual recantation feels psychologically authentic, reflecting real research about how children respond to adult questioning and pressure. The film avoids simplistic portrayals of childhood psychology while maintaining empathy for all the children involved. The hunting metaphor that gives the film its title operates on multiple levels throughout the narrative. Lucas becomes prey not just to accusations but to the entire community's need to find and punish a scapegoat. The metaphor extends to the ways people hunt for signs of guilt, for confirmation of their suspicions, and for justification of their treatment of Lucas. The film's production values, from costume design to set decoration, create an authentic Danish small-town environment without romanticizing or stereotyping rural life. The attention to realistic detail helps ground the story in believable circumstances, making the events feel more immediate and frightening for viewers. The performance of the child actors throughout the film maintains the naturalistic tone while dealing with extremely sensitive material. The young performers convey authentic childhood behavior and responses without seeming coached or artificial, contributing to the film's overall sense of psychological realism. The film's exploration of institutional failure extends beyond the immediate investigation to encompass broader social institutions like schools, churches, and local government. Each institution, despite its stated mission to serve and protect community members, fails Lucas in different ways, suggesting systemic rather than individual problems. The role of physical violence in the film, while relatively limited, serves important dramatic functions. The beating Lucas receives at the grocery store represents the community's desire to physically punish him even without legal justification, while the final gunshot suggests that the threat of violence may always remain present in his life. The film's treatment of recovery and healing avoids false optimism while maintaining hope for human resilience. Lucas's gradual reintegration into community life feels earned rather than convenient, but the final scene reminds viewers that complete recovery may be impossible. This balanced approach to resolution respects both the complexity of the situation and the long-term effects of false accusations. The cinematographic use of natural lighting creates an authentic visual environment that enhances the film's realistic approach. The lighting rarely feels artificial or manipulated, instead reflecting the natural rhythms of Danish seasonal light and the interiors of actual community spaces. The film's international festival circuit success, including Mikkelsen's Best Actor award at Cannes, confirmed its status as a significant artistic achievement. The recognition from prestigious international venues validated the film's universal themes while celebrating its specifically Danish cultural context. The role of communication breakdown in the film demonstrates how misunderstanding can escalate into tragedy when combined with fear and prejudice. The failure of various characters to communicate effectively, to listen carefully, to ask the right questions, to consider alternative explanations contributes directly to Lucas's ordeal. The film's treatment of reputation and social identity reveals how quickly and completely a person's standing in the community can be destroyed. Lucas's transformation from respected teacher to suspected predator occurs with shocking speed, demonstrating the fragility of social position and the power of community judgment. The seasonal imagery throughout the film reinforces themes of death and renewal while providing visual metaphors for Lucas's journey. The progression from autumn through winter to the following autumn suggests both cyclical repetition and the possibility of gradual healing, though the final scene complicates any simple redemptive reading. The film's sound mixing creates subtle audio landscapes that support the narrative without overwhelming it. The careful balance between dialogue, natural sound, and musical score maintains the naturalistic approach while enhancing emotional moments and building dramatic tension. The role of children's testimony in the film raises important questions about how legal and social systems should handle allegations involving young witnesses. The film doesn't suggest that children's claims should be dismissed, but rather advocates for more sophisticated and careful approaches to gathering and evaluating such testimony. The film's treatment of small-town social dynamics reveals both the strengths and weaknesses of close-knit communities. While such communities can provide support and belonging, They can also become claustrophobic and destructive when fear and suspicion take hold. The film presents a nuanced view of rural community life that avoids both romanticization and condemnation. The performance nuances throughout the film, from major characters to minor supporting roles, create a believable social ecosystem that feels organic rather than constructed. Each performance, no matter how small, contributes to the overall sense of authentic community life and realistic human behavior. The film's exploration of male friendship and loyalty provides emotional depth that elevates it beyond simple social commentary. The relationships between Lucas and his male friends, particularly Theo and Brun, offer insights into how men support each other during crisis while also revealing the limitations of such support when confronted with societal pressure. The cinematographic composition throughout the film uses framing and perspective to reinforce themes of isolation and exclusion. Lucas is increasingly shown alone in frames, separated from other characters by physical barriers or positioned at the margins of group scenes, visually representing his social ostracism. The film's treatment of expert testimony and professional authority reveals how credentials and institutional backing don't necessarily guarantee wisdom or accuracy. The psychologist who interviews Clara, despite his professional training, demonstrates how expertise can sometimes blind practitioners to alternative explanations or local contexts that might be relevant to their assessments. The role of physical space in the film extends beyond mere setting to become an active element in the narrative. Lucas's home, the kindergarten, the grocery store, and other locations transform from safe, familiar spaces into hostile territory as his situation deteriorates, reflecting his internal journey from security to isolation. The film's editing maintains narrative clarity while building psychological tension through careful pacing and selection of details. The editors avoid sensationalism while ensuring that viewers understand both the external events and their internal impact on Lucas, creating a viewing experience that is both intellectually engaging and emotionally involving. The treatment of forgiveness in the film reveals its complexity and limitation. While some characters eventually recognize their mistakes and attempt reconciliation, the film suggests that some damage cannot be completely undone. This realistic approach to forgiveness acknowledges both human capacity for redemption and the permanent consequences of certain actions. The film's international commercial success, earning over $16 million worldwide against a budget of less than $4 million, demonstrated that thoughtful, challenging cinema can find audiences beyond art-house circuits. This commercial viability helped establish the film as both an artistic and popular success. The role of assumptions and prejudice in the film extends beyond the immediate accusations to encompass broader social attitudes about men who work with children, the nature of childhood innocence, and the reliability of different types of testimony. These assumptions, while often unconscious, drive much of the action and determine many characters' responses to unfolding events. The film's treatment of collective trauma reveals how entire communities can be affected by allegations and investigations involving child abuse. While Lucas bears the primary burden of false accusation, the film shows how fear, suspicion, and division affect everyone in the community, creating a kind of social trauma that extends far beyond the immediate participants. The cinematographic use of close-ups and medium shots creates intimacy without voyeurism, allowing viewers to observe characters' emotional responses while maintaining appropriate distance from their pain. This visual approach supports the film's empathetic treatment of all characters, even those whose actions contribute to Lucas's suffering. The film's production design creates authentic environments that feel lived in rather than constructed for dramatic effect. The attention to realistic detail in settings from the kindergarten classroom to Lucas's modest home helps ground the story in believable circumstances while avoiding the artificial polish that might distance viewers from the characters' experiences. The role of communication failure throughout the film demonstrates how easily misunderstanding can escalate when combined with high emotional stakes. Characters repeatedly failed to listen carefully, ask clarifying questions, or consider alternative explanations, instead allowing their fears and assumptions to drive their responses to ambiguous situations. The film's treatment of institutional authority reveals both the necessity and the limitations of formal systems designed to protect children, while recognizing the importance of taking allegations seriously and having procedures to investigate them. The film also shows how these same systems can become rigid and destructive when they operate without sufficient nuance or local understanding. The seasonal progression provides both literal temporal structure and symbolic reinforcement of the film's themes. The movement from autumn through winter to the following autumn mirrors Lucas's journey through accusation, ostracism, and partial rehabilitation, while suggesting that some effects of his ordeal may be permanent or cyclical. The film's sound design creates subtle audio landscapes that enhance emotional content without manipulation. The careful integration of natural sound, dialogue, and musical elements maintains the realistic tone while supporting dramatic moments and character development throughout the narrative. The performance of supporting characters, from major figures like Theo to minor roles like shopkeepers and church members, creates a believable community ecosystem that feels organic rather than constructed. Each performance contributes to the overall sense of authentic social interaction while advancing themes related to community judgment and individual conscience. The film's exploration of truth and perception demonstrates how subjective interpretation can transform objective events into completely different stories. The same interactions between Lucas and Clara are perceived entirely differently by different observers, revealing how much human understanding depends on preconceptions and emotional states rather than empirical evidence. The cinematographic approach throughout maintains visual consistency while adapting to the emotional content of different scenes. The camera work remains naturalistic but becomes more claustrophobic and isolating as Lucas's situation deteriorates, then gradually opens up as some resolution is achieved, mirroring his psychological journey through the crisis. The film's international critical reception confirmed its relevance beyond Danish culture while celebrating its specific cultural context. Critics worldwide recognized themes and situations that resonated with their own society's fears and prejudices, suggesting that the film addresses universal human tendencies rather than culturally specific phenomena. The role of loyalty and betrayal in personal relationships provides emotional depth that elevates the film beyond social commentary to examine fundamental questions about human nature and moral courage. The various ways different characters respond to Lucas's crisis reveal their essential character while exploring how external pressure can influence individual conscience. The film's treatment of children and childhood avoids both sentimentalization and cynicism, instead presenting young characters as complex individuals capable of both innocence and unintentional harm. This nuanced approach to childhood psychology adds realism to the narrative while maintaining empathy for all the children involved in the situation. The editing rhythm supports the narrative structure while enhancing emotional impact through careful pacing and selection of details. The cuts serve the story rather than calling attention to themselves, maintaining the naturalistic style while building dramatic tension and providing appropriate emphasis for key moments. The film's production values, from cinematography to sound design to performance direction, work in harmony to create a unified artistic vision that serves the challenging subject matter. The technical excellence never overshadows the human drama but instead provides the foundation that allows the performances and themes to achieve their maximum impact. The Hunt ultimately stands as a masterwork of psychological realism and moral complexity. A film that refuses easy answers while demanding that viewers confront uncomfortable truths about human nature and social behavior. Thomas Vinterberg has created a work that functions simultaneously as compelling drama, social commentary, and psychological study, achieving the rare feat of being both artistically sophisticated and emotionally devastating. The film's power lies not in its ability to shock or sensationalize, but in its unflinching examination of how quickly and completely lives can be destroyed through the combination of good intentions, fear, and the human tendency to believe the worst about each other. The lasting impact of The Hunt extends beyond its immediate viewing experience to provoke ongoing reflection about justice, community, and the delicate balance between protecting the innocent and preserving the rights of the accused. In an era increasingly defined by social media mob justice and rapid judgment based on limited information, the film's themes feel more relevant than ever, serving as both warning and mirror for contemporary society's treatment of those caught in the crosshairs of public suspicion and outrage. The Hunt, 2012, is a Danish psychological drama that explores the devastating effects of false accusations on a small community. Directed by Thomas Vinterberg and written by Tobias Lindum, the film is notable for its restrained yet emotionally powerful storytelling, building tension through subtle social dynamics rather than overt action. The story revolves around Lucas, a well-liked kindergarten teacher, whose life is upended when he is falsely accused of sexually abusing a young girl in his care. The film examines themes of trust, social hysteria, and the fragility of reputation, reflecting broader societal anxieties about suspicion and morality. Casting for the film was crucial to its emotional impact. Mads Mikkelsen, who plays Lucas, was chosen for his ability to convey nuanced emotional depth and vulnerability. Mikkelsen, already an established actor internationally, brings a quiet intensity to the role, allowing viewers to empathize deeply with a character caught in a maelstrom of suspicion. His performance balances fragility with quiet dignity, making the unfolding tragedy all the more compelling. Other key cast members include Thomas Bo Larsen, Sus Wold, and Annika Wedderkopp, the latter playing Clara, the young girl whose false accusation triggers the central conflict. The casting of Annika Wedderkopp was particularly notable because she was very young, requiring careful direction to navigate the sensitive subject matter ethically and convincingly. The development of The Hunt began with Thomas Vinterberg and Tobias Lindum collaborating to explore a story that addressed the consequences of false allegations. The script underwent several revisions to ensure that the portrayal of the accusation and its effects was realistic and emotionally resonant without resorting to melodrama. Vinterberg was inspired by real-life cases in Denmark, aiming to examine not just the act of accusation but the cascading effects it has on a community, friendships, and family life. The filmmakers focused on creating a narrative that felt grounded and authentic, emphasizing character reactions over plot mechanics. Production involved meticulous planning to ensure the film maintained a naturalistic and immersive feel. Filming took place in Denmark, with a focus on small-town environments that reflect the intimate social networks central to the story. Vinterberg employed handheld camera techniques to create immediacy and a sense of realism, immersing viewers in the tense, claustrophobic atmosphere of the community. This approach allowed for subtle observation of characters' micro-expressions and body language, critical in a film where the unspoken social tension drives the narrative as much as dialogue. The production design avoided embellishment, emphasizing ordinary locations and everyday objects to make the story feel universal and relatable. The cinematography of The Hunt was handled with care to support the film's psychological intensity. Natural lighting and muted color palettes dominate the visual style, reinforcing the story's realism and the emotional coldness of Lucas's social isolation. The camera often lingers on characters' faces during moments of tension, highlighting the silent judgments, fear, and suspicion that pervade the town. Long takes are employed to allow performances to unfold organically, enhancing the feeling that the audience is witnessing events in real time rather than a constructed narrative. Music in the film is sparse and subtle, composed to complement the tension without overwhelming it. The score primarily uses quiet, ambient motifs that mirror the film's restrained approach, intensifying moments of dread and emotional fragility. Silence itself is used effectively as a tool, allowing viewers to focus on the actors' performances and the community's reactions, heightening the impact of each accusation and confrontation. The judicious use of music ensures that the audience remains attuned to the psychological stakes rather than being led by conventional cinematic cues. The Hunt premiered at the Cannes Film Festival in 2012, where it was met with critical acclaim. Mads Mikkelsen won the Best Actor award, recognized for his deeply moving and subtle portrayal of Lucas. The film's reception highlighted its fearless exploration of a morally complex subject and its ability to provoke intense emotional reactions from viewers. Critics praised its direction, screenplay, and performances, emphasizing how the film confronts uncomfortable truths about human behavior in the face of suspicion. Audiences responded to the authenticity and intensity of the story, often describing it as profoundly affecting and disturbing. The film was released internationally, reaching audiences in Europe, North America, and Asia. In Denmark, it sparked conversations about child protection, community responsibility, and the dangers of rushed judgment. Its international success was driven in part by its universal themes, showing how fear and mistrust can erode social bonds regardless of cultural context. The box office performance reflected both critical acclaim and audience interest, with the film performing strongly in arthouse circuits and international film festivals. Although it was not a mainstream blockbuster, its earnings were significant for a Danish drama and contributed to Mads Mikkelsen's growing international recognition. Analysis of The Hunt often focuses on its exploration of social psychology. The film examines how a single, unfounded accusation can trigger widespread hysteria, showing how fear and prejudice can amplify misinformation. Vinterberg's direction emphasizes the ripple effects of the accusation on Lucas's personal relationships, community standing, and mental health. The story interrogates themes of morality, the fragility of trust, and the collective responsibility of a community to balance caution with reason. The film's tension rises less from plot twists than from the escalating social consequences and the devastating human cost of rumor and fear. Culturally, The Hunt has left a lasting impact, influencing discussions on false accusations, mob mentality, and social ostracization. Its portrayal of the devastating personal consequences of unfounded suspicion resonates beyond the context of the film, prompting reflection on real-world social dynamics. The film also inspired discussions and references in popular media and memes, particularly in online communities debating moral judgment, the spread of rumors, and social panic. Some memes humorously or ironically reference Lucas's predicament, though the underlying subject matter remains serious, reflecting the film's ability to provoke thought and conversation across diverse audiences. Production of The Hunt was both meticulous and emotionally demanding, largely because of the sensitive nature of the story. Director Thomas Vinterberg aimed to ensure that the young actors, particularly Annika Wedderkopp, who played Clara, were guided carefully and ethically during filming. Wedderkopp's scenes were directed with extraordinary care to protect her from the potentially traumatic implications of the material. Vinterberg often used metaphorical language and carefully structured rehearsals to help her understand her role without exposing her to adult concepts of abuse. The trust between director and actors was essential, particularly because the film relies heavily on subtle performances and small gestures to convey enormous emotional weight. Casting Mads Mikkelsen as Lucas was a pivotal decision in shaping the film's tone. Mikkelsen, known for his versatility and depth, was able to portray the silent despair and mounting tension of a man whose life is suddenly derailed by suspicion. He reportedly prepared for the role by studying body language, observing social interactions in small towns, and considering how ostracism affects individuals psychologically. This preparation allowed him to convey the gradual erosion of Lucas's social world, from a respected community member to someone isolated and vilified. Supporting actors such as Thomas Bo Larsen and Sus Wold also contributed to the film's authenticity, embodying community reactions ranging from disbelief to outright hostility. Their performances emphasized the spectrum of human response to fear and suspicion, making the narrative feel grounded and realistic. Filming locations were carefully chosen to enhance the sense of realism and intimacy. The film was primarily shot in small Danish towns, with many scenes set in everyday locations such as kindergartens, local cafes, and homes. This choice reinforced the sense that Lucas's ordeal could happen anywhere, emphasizing the universality of the social dynamics explored. Vinterberg's use of naturalistic lighting and handheld camera work created an immediacy that made viewers feel present in every confrontation, every whispered suspicion, and every moment of social exclusion. Wide shots of empty streets, children playing, and isolated houses subtly reinforced Lucas's growing isolation, contrasting his once normal life with the creeping paranoia surrounding him. A crucial aspect of the filming process was the approach to scenes involving children. Since the story hinges on a child's accusation, ensuring authenticity without endangering young actors was paramount. Vinterberg and Lindem crafted the script to allow children to act naturally, while the heavier implications of their dialogue were handled by editing, camera angles, and post-production techniques. Scenes were shot with multiple takes, often focusing on adult reactions rather than forcing children to perform complex psychological material. This method maintained dramatic intensity while preserving the ethical treatment of young performers. The pacing and scene composition in The Hunt are integral to its storytelling. Long takes, careful framing, and the deliberate use of silence heighten tension and draw viewers into the emotional experience. For example, scenes of Lucas interacting with other parents at school gradually shift from cordiality to suspicion, with the camera capturing fleeting glances and subtle gestures that indicate the community's growing distrust. These moments, often extended without dialogue, allow the audience to sense the escalating social pressure, making the ultimate consequences more devastating. Music in The Hunt is minimal yet highly effective. Composer Nicola Gigland provided a score that underscores tension and emotional fragility without overwhelming the story. The music often consists of low, ambient tones, sometimes barely audible, which mirror the suppressed anxiety of the characters. Silence is strategically employed, especially during key moments of accusation and confrontation, to amplify the psychological tension and force viewers to focus on the human reactions rather than external cues. The result is a soundscape that feels organic, almost like the natural anxiety of a real community under stress. Post-production work was essential in refining the film's subtle narrative. Editing emphasized small, telling details, so a twitch of an eye, a hesitant step, a whispered accusation that gradually built the sense of social panic. Vinterberg's editing choices avoided sensationalism, instead allowing the tension to arise naturally from character interactions. Color grading maintained a muted palette, enhancing the realistic tone and reflecting the emotional bleakness that pervades the film. The film's release at the 2012 Cannes Film Festival marked a turning point in its international recognition. Mads Mikkelsen's Best Actor win at Cannes drew critical attention, highlighting the film's intense emotional impact. Critics noted its unflinching portrayal of social hysteria and its moral complexity. Many reviews emphasized how the film transcended its plot to comment on broader societal anxieties, such as the fragility of reputation, the dangers of collective fear, and the consequences of moral panic. Following Cannes, the film premiered in various countries, with audiences responding to its universality and emotional intensity. Box office performance reflected the film's appeal in both art house and mainstream circles, particularly in Europe. While not a blockbuster by Hollywood standards, The Hunt earned significant revenue for a Danish drama, bolstered by critical acclaim and festival exposure. The film also gained traction in North America, where it was praised for its psychological intensity and Mikkelsen's nuanced performance. Its success helped cement Vinterberg's reputation as a masterful director capable of handling delicate, provocative subjects with subtlety and insight. Scene-by-scene analysis reveals the film's meticulous construction. The opening sequences establish Lucas's normal life, his relationships, and the close-knit community. Through subtle visual quiz-friendly greetings, children playing, and ordinary domestic routine as the film builds a baseline of trust and stability. The false accusation emerges almost unexpectedly, triggered by a misinterpreted comment and a child's confusion, highlighting the fragility of perception. From this point, each scene is carefully structured to show how fear spreads like a contagion, with escalating confrontations and social ostracization that feel inevitable yet profoundly tragic. The climax of the film is both harrowing and cathartic. Lucas, physically and emotionally battered by his community's suspicion, reaches a breaking point in a scene of near violence at a local hunting ground. Here, Vinterberg's direction emphasizes the raw human emotions of fear, anger, and desperation. The resolution, while not entirely redemptive, allows for moments of reconciliation and reflection, demonstrating the resilience of human connection even after severe social trauma. This ending underscores the film's moral complexity, refusing simplistic resolutions while offering a poignant commentary on forgiveness, trust, and the human capacity for empathy. The cultural impact of The Hunt extends beyond cinema. Discussions of the film have appeared in academic essays, social commentary, and media coverage examining mob mentality, false accusations, and the mechanisms of social judgment. The film's title itself has become shorthand in some circles for the destructive power of rumor and suspicion. While serious in content, its themes have occasionally inspired internet memes and discussions in social media communities, often highlighting the absurdity and cruelty of collective judgment. These cultural echoes demonstrate the film's ability to resonate deeply across different contexts, prompting reflection and debate long after its release. The character development in The Hunt is a cornerstone of its emotional and psychological impact. Lucas, portrayed by Mads Mikkelsen, is crafted as a man whose life is seemingly ordinary yet deeply grounded in moral integrity. From the start, he is shown as a caring father, a trusted friend, and a committed kindergarten teacher. His interactions with his son, his colleagues, and the children in his care establish him as a figure of empathy and responsibility. This careful groundwork makes the subsequent accusation more devastating because it upends the trust that both the audience and the characters in the film have placed in him. Lucas's arc is defined not by overt dramatic changes but by the incremental erosion of social trust and personal stability. Clara, the young girl whose accusation catalyzes the narrative, is portrayed with remarkable innocence by Annika Wedderkopp. Her character embodies both the fragility and ambiguity of perception. Clara's confusion and the adult interpretations of her words demonstrate how innocent mistakes can be misread with catastrophic consequences. Vinterberg's sensitive direction ensures that Clara is never vilified. She is instead a lens through which the audience examines social hysteria, emphasizing that her words are interpreted, manipulated, and amplified by adults, which ultimately drives the tragedy. Other supporting characters contribute to the layered depiction of community dynamics. Thomas Bo Larsen plays Theo, a character who embodies the spectrum of human reaction to fear and suspicion. Initially cautious, gradually consumed by anxiety, and ultimately conflicted in his moral stance. Suswold, portraying a concerned parent, exemplifies the mixture of maternal instinct and societal pressure that fuels collective hysteria. The ensemble cast's performances are deliberately subtle, relying on micro-expressions, hesitant gestures, and silent judgment to convey tension. These portrayals reinforce the film's exploration of how communities can collectively escalate fear, leading to irreversible consequences. Symbolism and thematic layering are prevalent throughout the film. The setting of the small Danish town functions as both a literal and symbolic stage for the story. The familiar streets, local cafes, and community spaces become arenas for social judgment, illustrating how everyday environments can harbor immense psychological pressures. Objects like the kindergarten, playgrounds, and hunting grounds are laden with symbolic weight, places of innocence juxtaposed with fear, community gatherings shadowed by suspicion, and leisure spaces turning into sites of confrontation. Hunting, both literal and metaphorical, serves as a central motif. The film's title, The Hunt, reflects not only the climactic hunting scene but also the predatory nature of social suspicion. Lucas becomes a hunted figure, targeted by the community not for his actions but for the perception of wrongdoing. This dual meaning reinforces the moral and psychological tension, emphasizing how fear and judgment can transform ordinary social interactions into a collective pursuit with devastating consequences. The motif is reinforced visually through cinematography, with shots of Lucas framed against trees, fences, and open spaces that emphasize isolation and vulnerability. Thematic exploration extends into broader social commentary. The film interrogates the dynamics of collective hysteria, moral panic, and the fragility of human trust. Vinterberg presents these themes without overt didacticism, allowing viewers to draw their own conclusions about the mechanisms of social judgment. The narrative highlights how quickly fear can override reason, and how communities, despite ostensibly good intentions, can participate in acts of profound injustice. These ideas resonate universally, making the film compelling across cultural contexts. Critical reception of The Hunt was overwhelmingly positive, with reviewers highlighting its courage, emotional intensity, and nuanced social commentary. Critics praised Mads Mikkelsen's performance, often citing it as a career-defining role, noting his ability to convey profound emotional complexity through subtle gestures and restrained dialogue. The film's direction, writing, and cinematography were lauded for their ability to create tension and empathy without relying on sensationalist techniques. Many analyzers emphasized the universality of its themes, particularly the exploration of social panic and moral judgment, drawing parallels to historical and contemporary events where fear overrides reason. Audience reception was similarly strong, with many viewers describing the film as profoundly affecting and, at times, disturbing. The intensity of the narrative, combined with the relatability of the small-town setting, led audiences to reflect on the fragility of trust and the power of rumor. Some viewers reported lingering emotional reactions after screenings, a testament to the film's ability to evoke deep empathy and reflection. Social media discussions and online forums frequently referenced the film's portrayal of social dynamics, with many noting the timeless relevance of its themes. Internationally, the film sparked discussions about cultural attitudes toward children, authority, and morality. In Europe, it prompted debates about legal processes, community responsibility, and child protection, while in North America and Asia, it was frequently discussed in the context of psychological thrillers and moral dramas. Its impact extended to academic circles as well, with film studies programs analyzing the techniques used to portray psychological tension and community dynamics. The Hunt has since been referenced in discussions of mob mentality, ethical responsibility, and the consequences of false accusations in both social and legal contexts. Memes and cultural references, although lighter in tone, highlight the film's continued presence in popular discourse. Online communities have created memes drawing on Lucas's plight as a metaphor for misunderstood or unjustly judged individuals, often using the imagery of hunting or community suspicion in an ironic context. These references, while humorous, underscore the cultural resonance of the film's central premise, the power of perception and collective judgment to shape reality, sometimes with tragic consequences. The narrative structure of The Hunt is carefully designed to maximize psychological impact. Vinterberg avoids unnecessary exposition, instead revealing character motivations and community dynamics through interaction, visual cues, and reaction shots. The film's tension escalates gradually, with each act of suspicion, each whispered accusation, and each moment of isolation contributing to a cumulative sense of dread. By the climax, the audience is fully immersed in the social dynamics at play, experiencing the same tension, fear, and helplessness that Lucas endures. This structure is essential to the film's emotional resonance and moral complexity, as it avoids simplistic resolutions and instead offers a nuanced portrayal of human behavior under pressure. The film's editing and pacing reinforce its psychological intensity. Scenes often linger on moments of silence, hesitation, or subtle social gestures, emphasizing the weight of unspoken judgment. Long takes allow performances to unfold naturally, heightening the realism of each interaction. The interplay between visual storytelling and minimalistic sound design ensures that viewers are drawn into the emotional world of the characters, experiencing both the intimate personal struggle of Lucas and the broader societal pressures that shape the narrative. The opening scenes of The Hunt establish the normalcy and intimacy of Lucas's life. The film begins in his home, depicting interactions with his young son and friends, subtly conveying warmth, trust, and familiarity. These early moments are filmed with handheld cameras, using natural light to create an intimate and immersive environment. The cinematography here emphasizes closeness, drawing the viewer into Lucas's personal space, making the disruption caused by subsequent events feel even more intense. Small gestures, a smile, a hand on a shoulder, casual conversation are filmed in extended takes, establishing the rhythm of Lucas's everyday life and the security that will soon be disrupted. The inciting incident occurs in the kindergarten when Lucas is accused of inappropriate behavior by Clara, a young girl. This pivotal scene is handled with extreme sensitivity. Vinterberg avoids showing anything explicit, instead focusing on Clara's confusion and the adult's interpretation of her words. The camera often frames reactions rather than actions, showing the shock and disbelief on the faces of parents and colleagues. This choice heightens the psychological tension, demonstrating how fear and assumption can escalate without concrete evidence. The scene's effectiveness lies in its restraint. The audience is made to feel the accusation's impact through social and emotional cues rather than dramatized events. Following the accusation, the film gradually explores the breakdown of Lucas's social life. Key scenes include his interactions at the local store, where community members avoid him, and moments in public spaces where whispers and side glances communicate suspicion. These sequences are often shot using wide angles, capturing Lucas in the center of frames surrounded by empty space or subtly observing figures. This visual strategy underscores his isolation and vulnerability. The use of long takes allows the tension to build naturally, emphasizing how social ostracism can feel inescapable and relentless. The escalation continues through confrontational scenes in both domestic and public settings. Lucas's attempts to maintain normalcy with his son and friends are repeatedly undermined by suspicion, leading to moments of quiet despair and internalized stress. Cinematographically, Vinterberg employs close-ups to capture micro-expressions of the flicker of fear, hesitation, or distrust that reveal the community's emotional landscape. The editing deliberately lingers on these moments, giving viewers time to absorb the full weight of the social dynamics. The pacing is intentionally slow, mirroring Lucas's gradual alienation and the creeping intensity of the collective paranoia. The hunting sequence serves as the film's climactic turning point, both literally and symbolically. Lucas, forced into an environment that becomes simultaneously dangerous and socially charged, confronts the height of communal suspicion and potential violence. The handheld camera work intensifies the sense of immediacy, while careful framing ensures that both the environment and the characters' emotional states are conveyed effectively. The sequence's tension is amplified by minimal music and ambient sound, emphasizing the stark reality of fear and mistrust. The hunting scene operates as a metaphor for the societal hunt Lucas has endured, visually and narratively reinforcing the film's central motif. Throughout the film, editing choices contribute significantly to the psychological impact. Scenes are intercut to juxtapose Lucas's private vulnerability with public suspicion, reinforcing the contrast between his internal and external experiences. Silence is strategically employed, allowing viewers to focus on performance and interaction rather than narrative exposition. The film's rhythm, carefully modulated through pacing and shot duration, ensures that each accusation, reaction, and minor confrontation resonates deeply. By avoiding sensationalist cuts or abrupt transitions, Vinterberg allows tension to accumulate organically, heightening the sense of realism and moral weight. Critical reception consistently praised these directorial and technical decisions. Reviewers highlighted how Vinterberg's direction balances empathy, tension, and moral complexity. Cinematography, performed with restraint and intentionality, was lauded for its ability to convey psychological states without overt exposition. Critics frequently cited the use of long takes, natural lighting, and careful framing as key factors in immersing audiences in the social dynamics and ethical dilemmas presented by the narrative. Mads Mikkelsen's performance was repeatedly singled out, described as haunting, subtle, and career-defining, particularly in scenes requiring the conveyance of despair and resilience simultaneously. Audience reception also emphasized the film's emotional impact. Many viewers reported experiencing intense empathy for Lucas, describing feelings of tension, unease, and reflection that persisted after viewing. The film resonated across demographics, with parents, educators, and individuals concerned with social justice noting its exploration of the dangers of rumor, fear, and communal judgment. Discussions in online forums often focused on character motivations, the ethics of community behavior, and the fragility of trust in close-knit environments. The narrative's realism and moral ambiguity contributed to its lasting emotional and intellectual resonance. Awards and accolades solidified the film's reputation internationally. Mads Mikkelsen received the Best Actor award at the 2012 Cannes Film Festival, while Thomas Vinterberg's direction was widely celebrated in numerous international film festivals. The Hunt was nominated for several European Film Awards and garnered recognition for screenplay, direction, and acting. Its inclusion in critical best of lists for the decade further emphasized its significance as a work of moral and psychological insight, blending artistry with social commentary. The film's legacy extends into academic and social discourse. Scholars have analyzed The Hunt for its exploration of collective behavior, mob mentality, and the consequences of false allegations. The psychological realism of the community's response, combined with the ethical considerations of representing children in sensitive narratives, has been cited in film studies and sociology research. The narrative's restraint and focus on moral complexity provide a case study in effective storytelling that engages audiences intellectually and emotionally without resorting to sensationalism. Cultural references, including internet memes and social media discussions, continue to highlight the film's thematic relevance. Lucas's plight has been invoked as a metaphor for misunderstood individuals, social isolation, and moral panic. The imagery of hunting and suspicion is frequently used in discussions about the consequences of collective judgment and rumor, demonstrating the narrative's continued resonance in both serious analysis and popular culture. The combination of performance, direction, cinematography, and editing makes The Hunt a masterclass in psychological drama. Each scene contributes to the cumulative emotional and moral impact, while technical decisions ensure that the tension and empathy are sustained throughout. The film's ability to provoke reflection, discussion, and lasting emotional response speaks to its careful craftsmanship and the universality of its themes. Its enduring relevance and critical acclaim solidify its place as a seminal work in modern cinema, particularly in the exploration of moral ambiguity and social psychology. The thematic symbolism in The Hunt is rich and multifaceted, reinforcing the film's psychological and moral depth. The most prominent motif is hunting itself, operating both literally and metaphorically. The literal hunting scenes depict tension, control, and risk, while the metaphorical hunt refers to the social persecution Lucas faces. This duality emphasizes how fear and suspicion can transform ordinary individuals into targets, highlighting the predatory nature of collective judgment. Other symbolic elements include the kindergarten as a space of innocence, which is juxtaposed against the destructive potential of misinterpretation and communal hysteria. The playgrounds, quiet streets, and homes function as microcosms for social dynamics, where gossip, fear, and mistrust ripple outward, illustrating the fragility of social bonds. Lucas, as the protagonist, embodies both moral integrity and human vulnerability. Mads Mikkelsen's portrayal emphasizes quiet resiliency. His expressions, gestures, and body language communicate despair, frustration, and hope without overt dramatization. The audience witnesses the slow erosion of his social world, experiencing firsthand the isolation, suspicion, and tension that define his experience. Lucas's arc demonstrates the psychological consequences of false accusation, emphasizing both the internal struggle to maintain dignity and the external pressures of communal judgment. Secondary characters enrich the narrative by providing nuanced perspectives on the central crisis. Theo, played by Thomas Bolarsson, represents the moral ambiguity present within the community. He vacillates between caution and fear, demonstrating how ordinary individuals contribute, willingly or unknowingly, to collective hysteria. Susswold's character, a concerned parent, highlights the tension between maternal instinct and societal pressure, illustrating how fear can override reason even in well-meaning individuals. Each character's reaction functions as a mirror to the community's moral and psychological landscape, showing the diverse ways humans respond to perceived threats. Tertiary characters, though less prominent, are equally important in establishing the pervasive social tension. Minor community members are shopkeepers, neighbors, and other parents serve as vectors for rumor and suspicion, subtly reinforcing Lucas's isolation. Their brief appearances and whispered judgments accumulate to create a palpable atmosphere of paranoia. Vinterberg's attention to these small interactions emphasizes how collective hysteria is not driven solely by a single antagonist but emerges from the interplay of multiple social actors. Cinematography techniques in The Hunt are crucial to its emotional and narrative impact. The film relies heavily on handheld camera work to create immediacy, immersing the viewer in the unfolding social tension. Close-ups capture fleeting expressions, emphasizing micro-emotions like hesitation, fear, or judgment. Wide shots contextualize Lucas within his environment, often portraying him as physically or socially isolated. Natural lighting and muted color palettes enhance realism, supporting the film's restrained approach to storytelling. Strategic framing and long takes allow performances to unfold organically, heightening psychological tension without relying on conventional suspense cues or dramatic music. Editing is equally intentional, balancing pacing with narrative tension. Scenes are often extended to allow the audience to absorb the weight of each interaction, emphasizing the psychological consequences of social ostracism. Cross-cutting between Lucas's private moments and public confrontations reinforces the contrast between his internal struggle and the external social pressures. Silence and minimal music punctuate key scenes, ensuring that viewers focus on performance and subtle social cues rather than overt cinematic manipulation. Online and social media reception highlights the film's enduring cultural relevance. Discussion forums and film communities frequently analyze Lucas's moral and emotional journey, debating the ethical implications of false accusations and mob mentality. Memes often reference the hunting metaphor, portraying Lucas's experience as a symbol of misunderstanding, collective judgment, or unjust targeting. Some social media commentary leverages humor, while others engage in serious discourse about moral responsibility and social dynamics. The film's adaptability to these discussions underscores its resonance with contemporary audiences and its ability to provoke reflection in multiple contexts. The combination of thematic symbolism, nuanced character development, and meticulous cinematography makes The Hunt a masterclass in psychological drama. Each scene is carefully constructed to convey the cumulative effects of suspicion, fear, and moral panic. By focusing on subtle emotional cues, restrained direction, and realistic portrayals, the film immerses viewers in a deeply affecting narrative that transcends cultural and linguistic barriers. Its influence extends beyond cinema, informing discussions about ethics, social psychology, and community responsibility in both academic and popular forums. Critically, the film is celebrated for its moral complexity. Reviewers consistently note that The Hunt avoids simplistic binaries of guilt and innocence, instead presenting a nuanced exploration of human behavior under pressure. The interplay of performance, cinematography, and narrative structure ensures that the audience experiences the tension, fear, and ethical dilemmas firsthand. Mads Mikkelsen's central performance is often described as subtle yet devastating, capturing the emotional and psychological consequences of being falsely accused with remarkable restraint and authenticity. In terms of legacy, The Hunt has inspired subsequent filmmakers to explore similar themes with comparable restraint and psychological depth. Its influence is particularly evident in films and series that examine moral ambiguity, social ostracism, and the consequences of rumor or suspicion. In educational settings, The film is frequently used as a case study for discussions on ethics, child psychology, and narrative techniques in visual storytelling. Its careful handling of sensitive subject matter involving children sets a standard for ethical responsibility in filmmaking. The film's enduring relevance is further evidenced by continued critical reassessment and audience engagement years after its release. Retrospective analyses frequently praise the film for its foresight in addressing themes of social hysteria, moral panic, and communal responsibility, which remain universally pertinent. The emotional impact of Lucas's story, combined with the film's technical mastery, ensures that The Hunt remains a touchstone for discussions about morality, trust, and human behavior under social pressure. The soundscape of The Hunt is a critical component of its psychological tension. Composer Nicola Gigland crafted a score that is minimalist, understated, and highly deliberate. Rather than providing overt cues or dramatic orchestration, the music primarily uses subtle ambient textures, low-frequency drones, and sparse motifs to reinforce tension without intruding on the realism of the narrative. This restrained approach allows the audience to remain focused on the interactions between characters, where social cues, body language, and micro-expressions convey the majority of emotional content. The absence of conventional musical cues during pivotal scenes, such as the kindergarten accusation or confrontations in public spaces, heightens suspense by forcing viewers to process social dynamics without distraction. Sound design in the film is equally meticulous. Everyday noises of footsteps on wooden floors, doors opening, the rustle of clothing, children's laughter are amplified to create a sense of intimacy and immediacy. By emphasizing these ambient sounds, Vinterberg allows ordinary life to take on an unsettling weight, highlighting the psychological tension of seemingly mundane environments. Whispered conversations, side glances, and hesitant speech are captured with precise clarity, reinforcing the subtle mechanisms through which social suspicion spreads. Silence is strategically employed at key narrative moments, particularly during confrontations or scenes of isolation, making the audience hyper-aware of character reactions and enhancing the emotional impact of each moment. The auditory techniques used in The Hunt are closely tied to its cinematography and editing. The handheld camera work is complemented by diegetic sound that immerses viewers in the environments depicted. For example, during scenes in public spaces, distant murmurs and ambient noise convey the community's presence and judgment without ever showing overt hostility. In private moments, the soundscape is stripped down, allowing viewers to hear Lucas's breathing, subtle vocal hesitations, and environmental sounds that underscore his vulnerability. This interplay between sound and visual framing creates a layered experience where tension builds organically rather than being imposed by narrative exposition. Pacing is carefully calibrated to maximize psychological impact. The film begins with a slow, deliberate rhythm that establishes normalcy and allows the audience to form a baseline connection with Lucas and his community. Once the accusation occurs, the pacing shifts subtly, longer shots linger on micro-interactions, pauses in dialogue are extended, and cross-cutting between Lucas's private struggles and public scrutiny accentuates tension. Scenes are rarely rushed, each interaction, glance, and gesture is given time to resonate. This deliberate pacing ensures that the social and emotional stakes are felt cumulatively, producing a sustained sense of unease that mirrors Lucas's own experience. Tension building in The Hunt is achieved primarily through subtle social dynamics rather than overt drama. Vinterberg emphasizes small quiz, a hesitant speech, sideways glances, interruptions in casual interactions that reveal underlying fear, suspicion, or judgment. By focusing on these micro-conflicts, the film generates suspense without relying on conventional thriller tropes. The narrative structure alternates between moments of calm and escalating tension, maintaining a sense of unpredictability. Audiences are made to anticipate potential confrontation or social fallout, creating psychological engagement that extends beyond the visual and auditory elements. The psychological impact on viewers is profound. By presenting social ostracism and false accusation in such a realistic and restrained manner, The Hunt evokes empathy, discomfort, and reflection. Many viewers report feeling tension and anxiety in scenes where Lucas is subjected to judgment, even in the absence of overt threat. The combination of intimate sound design, restrained music, slow pacing, and naturalistic performances immerses audiences in the emotional reality of being targeted by social suspicion. The result is a visceral experience where moral and emotional engagement with the narrative is unavoidable, prompting contemplation of human behavior, community dynamics, and ethical responsibility. The interplay of music, sound design, pacing, and tension building is particularly effective in key sequences, such as Lucas's interactions in the kindergarten, public confrontations, and the climactic hunting scene. In each, the auditory environment underscores the narrative stakes. The ambient silence of an empty playground emphasizes vulnerability, murmured side conversations in public spaces convey mounting suspicion, and the subtle drone during confrontations heightens anxiety without manipulation. Vinterberg's integration of auditory elements with visual storytelling ensures that every scene operates on multiple psychological levels, deepening the viewer's engagement and emotional response. Critically, the film's approach to sound and music has been highlighted as a distinguishing feature in reviews and academic analyses. Commentators frequently note that the restrained auditory palette enhances realism and psychological tension, demonstrating a sophisticated understanding of how sound influences audience perception. The minimalistic score, precise diegetic sounds, and use of silence collectively reinforce the film's themes of social suspicion, isolation, and moral ambiguity. By aligning auditory techniques with narrative intent, The Hunt exemplifies the potential of sound design as a tool for emotional and psychological immersion. The film's impact on audiences extends beyond passive viewing, prompting reflection on ethical, social, and psychological issues. Discussions in film forums, social media, and academic contexts often highlight the emotional resonance of sound and pacing. Viewers report heightened awareness of micro-interactions in their own social environments, reflecting the film's capacity to provoke both emotional empathy and critical thought. Memes and online references occasionally draw on the film's auditory tension, depicting silent judgment or the sound of suspicion, illustrating how these subtle elements have permeated popular consciousness. The opening scene of The Hunt immediately establishes Lucas's ordinary life and the close-knit dynamics of his community. Filmed with natural lighting and handheld cameras, the sequence immerses viewers in a realistic domestic environment. Background sounds are children's laughter, the clinking of dishes, and faint traffic noise create an authentic sense of normalcy. Lucas interacts warmly with his son and neighbors, and the pacing is deliberately relaxed, allowing the audience to form a baseline of trust in his character. This calm and mundane beginning amplifies the impact of the subsequent accusation, as the audience has invested in his normalcy and integrity. The psychological effect is immediate. Viewers feel a sense of security, which will later be destabilized by suspicion and social ostracism. The kindergarten accusation is the narrative pivot. Annika Wedderkopp's portrayal of Clara is nuanced, conveying confusion and honesty. The camera focuses on her expressions and hesitant gestures while simultaneously capturing adult reactions. Sound design emphasizes the whispers, gasps, and murmurs of the other adults, heightening tension without sensationalism. Silence is strategically used after the accusation, leaving Lucasa and the audience here to process the gravity of the event. The scene demonstrates how auditory cues, pacing, and performance can communicate social hysteria without overt exposition. Public confrontations in the marketplace and school further develop the narrative tension. Lucas is framed visually in wide shots that isolate him, emphasizing vulnerability. The handheld camera follows his movements closely, capturing micro-reactions from onlookers, furtive glances, hushed whispers, and subtle distancing. Ambient sounds, such as footsteps, chatter, and background activity, contrast with the silence of Lucas's internal world, reinforcing his isolation. The pacing of these sequences is slower than conventional thrillers, allowing tension to build gradually. Emotionally, viewers experience Lucas's growing alienation and the creeping sense of collective judgment, mirroring the film's central psychological theme. Scenes involving Lucas's family underscore the personal impact of social suspicion. Intimate close-ups captured the strain in interactions between Lucas and his son, highlighting the emotional fallout of public accusation on private life. Sound design emphasizes small domestic noises, so the creak of a floorboard, a sigh, or the rustle of clothing to create intimacy and focus on human behavior. The minimal musical score allows silence to dominate, making the psychological weight of each interaction palpable. Pacing here is measured, reinforcing the slow, accumulative effects of social tension on family life. The hunting scene, as the climactic centerpiece, integrates visual, auditory, and symbolic elements. Lucas is placed in a literal hunting environment, paralleling the metaphorical hunt he has endured socially. Handheld camera work conveys immediacy and tension, while natural light and muted color palettes maintain realism. Diegetic sounds of the crackle of leaves, distant gunshots, and tension-filled silence so intensify the emotional stakes. Close-ups on Lucas's expressions, combined with wide shots of the surrounding environment, underscore both vulnerability and resilience. This sequence exemplifies how the film synthesizes cinematography, sound design, and performance to create a psychologically immersive experience. Social and psychological commentary permeates each scene. The film scrutinizes how communities react to fear and uncertainty, showing that suspicion can spread rapidly and unjustly. Secondary characters, such as parents and local townspeople, illustrate varied responses to the accusation: disbelief, caution, fear, and aggression. These portrayals serve as microcosms of larger societal dynamics, offering insight into moral panic, collective behavior, and the fragility of trust. By focusing on realistic reactions and ethical dilemmas rather than sensationalized events, the film encourages viewers to reflect on human behavior in real-world contexts. The influence of The Hunt on later films and cultural discourse is significant. Its minimalist, psychologically driven approach has inspired filmmakers exploring themes of moral ambiguity, social ostracism, and psychological tension. The restrained use of music, emphasis on naturalistic performance, and focus on micro-expressions have become points of study in cinematography and film production courses. In popular culture, references to Lucas's plight and the metaphorical hunt appear in discussions of social judgment, mob mentality, and ethical responsibility, demonstrating the film's continued relevance beyond cinema. The final scenes of The Hunt offer moral and emotional reflection without simplistic resolution. Lucas's partial reintegration into the community demonstrates resilience and human capacity for empathy, yet the lingering effects of suspicion and isolation remain. The narrative emphasizes consequences, both psychological and social, of false accusations, providing a meditation on trust, morality, and human interconnectedness. Auditory and visual restraint in these sequences amplifies the emotional weight, leaving viewers with an enduring impression of both tragedy and hope. The cumulative effect of these sequences illustrates Vinterberg's mastery of psychological storytelling. By combining precise cinematography, minimalistic sound design, deliberate pacing, and nuanced performances, the film achieves sustained tension and deep emotional resonance. Each scene reinforces central themes, from the vulnerability of the accused to the social mechanisms that perpetuate fear and judgment, creating a coherent, immersive narrative experience. Minor characters in The Hunt play an essential role in reinforcing the social dynamics that drive the narrative. While Lucas, Clara, and the main supporting characters dominate the plot, these tertiary figures are parents at the kindergarten, neighbors, and townspeople serve as vectors for rumor, judgment, and societal pressure. Each brief interaction, glance, or whispered comment contributes cumulatively to the psychological tension. For example, a shopkeeper's hesitant greeting or a neighbor's subtle distancing functions as a narrative device, showing how collective suspicion spreads through everyday interactions. These characters exemplify the ordinariness of fear and moral panic, highlighting that destructive social dynamics do not require overt antagonists but can emerge organically from communal behavior. In addition to minor characters, the film's editing techniques significantly shape its emotional and psychological impact. Scenes are often constructed with long takes that allow subtle performances to unfold naturally, emphasizing micro-expressions, body language, and pauses in dialogue. Cross-cutting between private and public spaces demonstrates the contrast between Lucas's internal experience and external judgment, heightening tension without sensationalism. Pacing is carefully modulated. The film accelerates subtly during confrontations and decelerates during reflective or intimate moments, creating a rhythm that mirrors the ebb and flow of social pressure. Transitions between scenes are often seamless, avoiding distraction and maintaining immersion, ensuring that the audience experiences the cumulative weight of suspicion and ostracism. Cinematography choices further enhance the film's realism and emotional resonance. Vinterberg frequently employs handheld cameras to generate immediacy, placing viewers within the spaces of the narrative. Close-ups capture fleeting emotions, a hesitation, fear, or judgment, while wide shots contextualize Lucas within his environment, emphasizing isolation and vulnerability. The muted color palette reinforces the emotional tone, reflecting the subdued but pervasive tension of the story. Strategic framing, such as positioning Lucas off-center or within negative space, visually conveys his marginalization and social alienation. Lighting is consistently naturalistic, avoiding dramatic contrasts and instead allowing environmental light to shape mood and realism. Sound and music work in tandem with cinematography and editing to immerse viewers further. Minimalistic scores and ambient noise amplify psychological tension, while silence punctuates critical moments to focus attention on performance and social dynamics. Whispered conversations, footsteps, and environmental sounds are foregrounded, reinforcing the immediacy of the narrative. This integration of auditory and visual techniques ensures that tension, emotion, and moral complexity are conveyed consistently throughout the film. International critical reception reinforced The Hunt's status as a landmark psychological drama. Reviewers across Europe, North America, and Asia lauded its moral complexity, restrained direction, and Mads Mikkelsen's performance. Many critics highlighted the universality of its themes, noting that false accusations, moral panic, and social ostracism transcend cultural boundaries. The film was praised for its courage in addressing sensitive subject matter, particularly the ethical representation of children and the psychological realism of adult behavior in high-stress social situations. Academic analyses emphasized the effectiveness of its long takes, naturalistic lighting, and diegetic sound in constructing a narrative that is both immersive and ethically responsible. Festival exposure amplified the film's international profile. Winning Best Actor for Mads Mikkelsen at the 2012 Cannes Film Festival brought critical attention, while screenings at other international festivals showcased its narrative and technical achievements. The festival circuit validated the film's approach to psychological tension, moral ambiguity, and ethical storytelling, positioning it as both artistically significant and culturally resonant. These accolades contributed to its distribution in multiple territories and its sustained visibility in international cinema discussions. The long-term cultural influence of The Hunt is multifaceted. In addition to inspiring filmmakers exploring moral complexity and psychological realism, it has become a reference point in discussions of collective behavior, ethical responsibility, and social judgment. The film's title and imagery are frequently invoked in popular discourse as metaphors for societal hunts or collective suspicion, whether in media coverage, online discussions, or cultural commentary. Its careful depiction of moral panic has also informed educational and academic settings, where it is used as a case study in ethics, social psychology, and film studies. The combination of minor character dynamics, editing precision, cinematography, Sound design and pacing ensures that The Hunt operates as an emotionally immersive and morally provocative work. Every technical and narrative choice contributes to the overarching psychological impact, reinforcing themes of isolation, suspicion, and resilience. By focusing on realism, subtlety, and ethical responsibility, the film sustains tension, provokes reflection, and maintains universal relevance, securing its place as a seminal work in contemporary cinema. One of the most striking aspects of The Hunt is its exploration of social themes and moral philosophy. The film interrogates the fragility of trust within communities and the mechanisms by which suspicion spreads. At its core, it examines the human tendency to judge based on incomplete or ambiguous information, revealing how fear and moral panic can override reason and empathy. The accusation against Lucas acts as a catalyst, exposing latent prejudices, insecurities, and anxieties within the community. Vinterberg's narrative demonstrates that moral and social judgment is not confined to a single villain. Instead, it emerges collectively, highlighting the ethical complexity of social dynamics. The film also engages with philosophical questions surrounding innocence, guilt, and responsibility. Lucas's experience raises profound moral dilemmas. How should communities respond to allegations? What is the ethical responsibility of individuals when faced with uncertainty? How does collective action amplify or distort individual judgment? By refusing to offer simple answers, The Hunt encourages viewers to reflect on their own moral frameworks and the potential consequences of their actions within social networks. The film's moral inquiry is amplified by the restrained performances and naturalistic direction, allowing ethical questions to emerge organically rather than through didactic exposition. Real-world parallels to The Hunt are evident in both historical and contemporary contexts. The narrative mirrors instances of moral panic, where false accusations or rumors have led to widespread social consequences. Examples include small-town hysteria, media-driven campaigns, or legal cases where public opinion overrides due process. By portraying these dynamics in a contained community, the film universalizes the experience, allowing viewers from diverse cultural backgrounds to relate. Its depiction of the social consequences of suspicion resonates with discussions about cancel culture, reputational damage, and the psychological toll of ostracism, demonstrating its continued relevance in modern society. The ethical representation of children is another critical social theme. Clara's character demonstrates how young voices can be interpreted and amplified in ways that adults may misread. The film carefully navigates this sensitive territory, emphasizing the responsibility of adults to interpret children's statements with caution and empathy. This approach provides a broader commentary on power dynamics, the vulnerability of the innocent, and the moral obligations of guardians and community members. It also reinforces the film's overarching concern with fairness, accountability, and the consequences of hasty judgment. Awards and nominations further underscore The Hunt's industry recognition and artistic impact. Mads Mikkelsen's Best Actor award at the 2012 Cannes Film Festival brought immediate international attention, establishing the film as a major critical success. The film was subsequently nominated for numerous European Film Awards, including Best Director, Best Film, and Best Screenplay, highlighting its technical and narrative achievements. National film academies in Denmark also recognized the film, awarding it honors for cinematography, editing, and acting. Its festival and award trajectory demonstrates both peer recognition and validation from industry authorities, affirming the film's artistic significance. Long-term industry recognition includes its placement in retrospectives, best of lists, and academic studies. The Hunt is frequently cited in discussions of psychological realism, ethical filmmaking, and moral complexity in cinema. Filmmakers and educators reference its techniques in directing child actors responsibly, using subtle visual storytelling, and constructing tension through editing, sound, and pacing rather than sensationalism. Its influence is apparent in subsequent European and international films that explore social ostracism, ethical dilemmas, and psychological drama, establishing it as a touchstone for contemporary storytelling. Cultural discussions inspired by the film often focus on societal implications. Debates range from the ethical treatment of the accused to the mechanisms of collective behavior that amplify fear and suspicion. In this sense, The Hunt operates as both a cinematic work and a social mirror, reflecting human tendencies and prompting viewers to examine their own moral reasoning. Its portrayal of the consequences of false accusations has become a reference in conversations about social responsibility, justice, and communal ethics. The integration of technical mastery of cinematography, sound, editing, and performance with profound social and philosophical commentary ensures that The Hunt maintains a dual impact. It engages audiences emotionally while also stimulating reflection on moral, ethical, and societal questions. This duality contributes to its lasting relevance and cements its status as a seminal work in contemporary cinema. The Hunt has been widely studied in academic contexts, particularly within film studies, sociology, and psychology. Scholars frequently analyze the film as an exemplar of psychological realism and ethical storytelling. Its restrained direction, naturalistic performances, and use of long takes make it a primary case study in how tension and emotional depth can be conveyed without conventional thriller tropes. In film theory courses, Vinterberg's integration of narrative, cinematography, sound, and performance is often cited as a model for crafting immersive storytelling that prioritizes human emotion and moral inquiry. The film's depiction of false accusation, collective hysteria, and social ostracism is used to examine the interaction between narrative structure and social commentary, illustrating how cinema can reflect and interrogate human behavior. Psychological studies have also referenced The Hunt as a cinematic exploration of group dynamics and moral panic. The film provides a visual and narrative model for understanding how fear, suspicion, and rumor propagate within communities, and the resulting impact on individual psychology. Students and researchers analyze the micro-expressions, social interactions, and escalating tension to understand the mechanisms of social pressure, empathy breakdown, and the consequences of mob mentality. It has also been used in ethics and child psychology discussions, particularly regarding the interpretation of statements by children and the responsibilities of adults in positions of authority. The cultural footprint of The Hunt extends well beyond academic circles. Social media discussions, forum debates, and online reviews continue to reference Lucas's experience as a metaphor for misunderstanding, social exclusion, or collective moral judgment. Memes often highlight the tension and silent judgment central to the film, sometimes humorously referencing the hunting motif or Lucas's isolation, yet these online interpretations also underscore the narrative's resonance with contemporary issues like cancel culture, false accusations, and the fragility of social trust. The film has become a touchstone in discussions of social ethics, morality, and communal responsibility, demonstrating its adaptability and continued relevance in both popular and critical discourse. Internationally, the film's reception has been shaped by its universal themes. While rooted in a Danish small-town context, the narrative's exploration of suspicion, morality, and communal judgment resonates across cultures. Critics and audiences worldwide have recognized its depiction of psychological tension and ethical dilemmas, contributing to discussions about trust, justice, and human behavior in both fictional and real-world contexts. This universality reinforces its significance as a work of art capable of crossing cultural and linguistic boundaries while maintaining emotional and moral impact. The synthesis of The Hunt's artistic, cultural, and social legacy highlights its multifaceted significance. Artistically, the film exemplifies mastery in directing, acting, cinematography, editing, and sound design, all employed to create immersive psychological drama. Culturally, it has sparked discussions about morality, ethics, social behavior, and the responsibilities of individuals and communities. Socially, it provides a lens through which to examine the consequences of collective judgment, rumor, and fear. prompting reflection on the fragility of trust and the impact of moral panic. Its ongoing relevance in academic studies, popular discourse, and creative influence on filmmakers solidifies its position as a seminal work of contemporary cinema. In conclusion, The Hunt, 2012, stands as a powerful exploration of moral complexity, psychological tension, and social dynamics. Through meticulous craftsmanship, naturalistic performances, and ethical storytelling, it delivers an emotionally and intellectually compelling narrative. Its critical acclaim, festival success, and enduring cultural resonance underscore the film's significance as a landmark in international cinema. By integrating nuanced character development, thematic depth, technical mastery, and social commentary, Vinterberg's work continues to influence filmmakers, scholars, and audiences, ensuring that the story of Lucas and the hunt against him remains a profound and relevant cinematic experience. The Hunt, 2012, is a Danish psychological drama film that explores the fragility of trust and the consequences of false accusations within a small community. The film stars Mads Mikkelsen as Lucas, a kindergarten teacher whose life is thrown into turmoil after a young student falsely accuses him of sexual misconduct. The casting process emphasized authenticity and emotional depth, with Mikkelsen selected for his ability to convey subtle emotional shifts and moral complexity. Annika Wedderkopp was cast as Clara, the child whose accusation triggers the narrative, and her performance required careful direction to ensure ethical representation while maintaining realism. Supporting roles were filled by experienced Danish actors, including Thomas Bo Larsen, Sus Wold, and Lasse Fogelstray Cedillo M., each contributing to the depiction of a community responding to fear and suspicion with a mix of empathy, hesitation, and judgment. The ensemble cast was selected to represent a believable cross-section of a small Danish town, highlighting the ordinary individuals who collectively shape social dynamics. Development of the film focused on creating a psychologically realistic story that examined moral ambiguity and social hysteria. Thomas Vinterberg, known for his work in Dogme 95 cinema, sought to craft a narrative that was both emotionally immersive and morally provocative. The screenplay was developed with attention to the nuanced social mechanisms that amplify fear, suspicion, and rumor. Early drafts explored multiple perspectives within the community, ultimately centering on Lucas as the lens through which audiences experience moral panic, social isolation, and personal resilience. The development process emphasized ethical responsibility, particularly in portraying sensitive subject matter involving children, ensuring that the narrative could provoke reflection without sensationalism. Production involved a meticulous approach to location, cinematography, and performance. Filming took place in small towns across Denmark, using natural lighting and real-world environments to heighten authenticity. Handheld cameras were employed to immerse viewers in Lucas's world, creating a sense of immediacy and intimacy. Production design focused on everyday details: homes, playgrounds, streets, and communal spaces that reflected the ordinariness of the setting, reinforcing the psychological realism of the narrative. Director Thomas Vinterberg worked closely with actors to ensure performances were subtle yet emotionally resonant, with particular attention to micro-expressions, hesitations, and gestures that convey internalized tension. Scenes involving children were carefully choreographed and directed to balance authenticity with ethical safety, ensuring that young actors could deliver convincing performances without exposure to inappropriate content. Filming techniques emphasized realism, immersion, and psychological tension. Long takes allowed actors' performances to unfold naturally, capturing small nuances that would have been lost in rapid editing. Wide shots framed Lucas within the environment, emphasizing his social and emotional isolation, while close-ups highlighted micro-emotions and subtle reactions from both main and minor characters. The camera frequently followed characters in handheld motion, allowing audiences to experience the tension and uncertainty alongside them. Naturalistic lighting and muted color palettes contributed to a subdued atmosphere, reinforcing the moral weight and psychological tension of the narrative. The music, composed by Nicolai Jagland, was minimalist and deliberate, utilizing subtle ambient textures and sparse motifs to underscore tension without distracting from the realism of the narrative. Low-frequency drones and gentle harmonics were employed during key confrontational or suspenseful moments, complementing the film's restrained visual style. Sound design emphasized diegetic elements, including footsteps, whispered conversations, ambient noise, and environmental sounds, creating an immersive auditory landscape. Silence was strategically utilized to focus attention on micro-expressions, gestures, and social cues, particularly during the kindergarten accusation, public confrontations, and intimate family moments. The interplay of music, sound design, and naturalistic dialogue reinforced the psychological immersion, allowing tension to build organically rather than relying on conventional thriller techniques. Upon release, The Hunt received critical acclaim both domestically and internationally. In Denmark, audiences responded strongly to its emotional resonance and realism, with sold-out screenings in urban centers. Internationally, festival recognition, particularly Mads Mikkelsen's Best Actor award at Cannes, propelled the film into the art house circuit across Europe, North America, and Asia. Critics praised the film for its moral complexity, restrained direction, and Mikkelsen's subtle yet devastating performance. Reviewers consistently highlighted the universality of the themes, noting that false accusations, moral panic, and social ostracism transcend cultural boundaries. Audience reception mirrored critical response, with viewers reporting intense empathy for Lucas and heightened awareness of social dynamics and ethical responsibility. Discussions in forums, film communities, and social media emphasized both narrative and moral lessons, frequently referencing the metaphorical hunt as a reflection of real-world social judgment. Box office performance, while modest compared to mainstream blockbusters, was significant for a Danish psychological drama. The film grossed approximately $17.18 million worldwide, driven by domestic success, festival exposure, and strategic limited international release. Its financial viability demonstrated that audiences are receptive to character-driven, morally complex narratives when supported by critical acclaim and festival recognition. The film's continued presence on streaming platforms and home media further extended its reach, allowing new audiences to engage with its themes and performances years after the initial release. Scene-by-scene analysis reveals the meticulous construction of psychological tension. The opening domestic sequences establish Lucas's normalcy and warmth, emphasizing trust and intimacy through natural lighting, ambient sounds, and handheld camera work. The kindergarten accusation pivots the narrative, using close-ups, whispered dialogue, and silence to convey the profound impact of suspicion without sensationalism. Public confrontations and marketplace interactions employ wide shots and ambient noise to highlight Lucas's isolation, while intimate family moments use close-ups and diegetic sound to emphasize emotional fallout. The climactic hunting scene merges visual, auditory, and symbolic elements, portraying Lucas in a literal and metaphorical hunt that encapsulates the social and moral pressures he endures. Minor characters, parents, neighbors, and townspeople serve as vectors for rumor and social judgment, demonstrating that collective hysteria emerges from ordinary behavior rather than singular antagonism. Editing techniques, including long takes, cross-cutting, and careful pacing, allow tension to accumulate organically while emphasizing contrasts between private and public experiences. Cinematography choices, including off-center framing, handheld movement, and muted color palettes, reinforce themes of isolation, vulnerability, and communal scrutiny. Social and psychological themes permeate the narrative, examining moral responsibility, collective judgment, and the fragility of trust. The ethical representation of children, particularly Clara, underscores the responsibilities of adults in interpreting and responding to ambiguous statements. Real-world parallels to moral panic, reputational damage, and communal ostracism reinforce the film's relevance beyond fiction. Philosophically, the film interrogates concepts of innocence, guilt, and communal accountability, prompting viewers to reflect on ethical behavior within social networks. The cultural footprint of The Hunt extends to social media, internet memes, and academic discourse. Lucas's experience is frequently cited as a metaphor for misunderstanding, social exclusion, or moral targeting, while the hunting motif is used symbolically in discussions of suspicion and fear. Academic analyses explore its narrative structure, psychological realism, and ethical considerations, while film courses reference its technical mastery, ethical direction, and integration of performance, sound, and cinematography. Festivals, awards, and nominations, including Cannes and European Film Awards recognition, affirm the film's artistic impact and international relevance. The legacy of The Hunt lies in its ability to merge technical excellence with moral and social insight. Its restrained approach to storytelling, immersive cinematography, precise sound design, deliberate pacing, and subtle performances create a psychological experience that is both emotionally compelling and intellectually provocative. By examining social dynamics, moral ambiguity, and the consequences of fear and suspicion, the film continues to influence filmmakers, scholars, and audiences. Its enduring relevance in contemporary discourse, educational settings, and popular culture solidifies its status as a landmark work in international cinema, exemplifying the power of film to reflect human behavior, provoke reflection, and inspire dialogue.